Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
Sallallahu alayka ya Rasul Allah wa ala ahli baytika al-mazlumin. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله يا الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة غريب مظلوم كربلاء يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. Peace be upon you, O Hussein. You're the mercy of God and the gate to His salvation and His gate to our salvation. Oh, how we wish that we were with you on the land of Karbala, so that we may have defended you and we would have been victorious just as you have been. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Tonight is the first night after the Battle of Karbala. The battle had ended during the day. The Imam and all his companions and almost all his family members, except Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, a few children, and the ladies, most of them were not killed. Of course, this night is a very difficult one. The opposition, the army, had already committed the crime. They made the mistake, and there's no way they can turn back now. They can't rewind, they can't go back in history to change what they have done. These days are commemorated. We are sitting down here because that army on that day had committed that crime. The effect of it goes on and on for years and years. Sometimes a mistake that we commit has an effect that continues throughout the generations. Raising children is one example. If you raise a good child, then there's a very high chance that that child also raises another good child. And it continues that way over the generations. The actions that we do affect everyone after us, whether it's related to family, it's related to the environment. How we behave now affects the generations that are to come. The destruction that we do on earth affects the generations to come. So when we think as human beings, we have to think of our responsibilities on more than one level. It's not only the immediate and direct responsibilities that we have to think about. Sometimes we don't think about the consequence about things we do. When we behave, we only are aware usually of those things that are surrounding us. As long as I don't lie to someone or I don't hit someone in front of me. And things that I can see with my own eye, those I tend to worry about. But in many cases, what we suffer from is that lack of insight to the future and to things that are not only surrounding us, but those things that we don't pay attention to or are not directly related to us. Sometimes I can throw, let's say, if you want to look at the environmental problem, I throw a straw in the garbage, a plastic straw, and I don't think anything about it. A few months later, that straw, when I throw it in the garbage, it's not going to disappear. That straw is thrown somewhere, maybe taken to a different country where they have dumpsters, where they dump the garbage. They have landfills, and that garbage seeps into the sea, and the straw goes into a turtle or some other creature that suffers from it. Now, we don't think about that because it's not directly in front of us. We don't see the consequence and effect of our actions. And one of the reasons why this happens is because we are usually enclosed on ourselves. The past few nights I talked about the necessity of being mindful, of meditating, of thinking, and to go deeply within ourselves. One of the things that this helps us do is it helps us connect with things around us. Because we become deeper creatures, we begin thinking about deeper matters, we start feeling the connection between us and everything surrounding us. This happens through contemplation, it happens through thinking, it happens through mindfulness. Otherwise, if our minds are too busy on the surface with a lot of chaotic things and we don't think, we never realize the consequence of our actions because we never have time to think about them. So one of the things that we have to think about is how would our actions affect not only us and those who are close to us, but how would our actions affect everything around us. Again, the Battle of Ghariban happened, and until this day, the Muslims are suffering to a certain degree because of what those people have done at that time. Now, tonight I wanted to bring a phrase that the Imam mentioned on Karbala. During the Battle of Karbala, the Imam said a very important phrase, something that we can take and contemplate over and try to understand what he was referring to. When the Imam was being attacked, he told the enemy army, إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَكُمْ دِينٌ وَكُنْتُمْ لَا تَخَافُونَ الْمَعَادِ فَكُونُوا أَحْرَارًا فِي دُنْيَاكُمْ. He told the opposing army, if you have no religion, if you don't believe in God, you don't believe in religion, and you don't have this in your heart, nor do you fear the hereafter. So if you don't have religion, and you don't fear the hereafter, the afterworld, the day of judgment, then at least be free in this world. The Imam here is trying to say that you don't have to only be believing in God or in religion to be someone who is free, someone who's able to make good decisions. Now we can open a very long discussion about this, and in philosophy there's a whole field dedicated to whether people can be moral without religion. Can people do good things without religion or not? Some people believe yes, you can be an atheist and you can be good. You can be nice to people, you don't lie, you're honest, and still not believe in God. Others say no, you can only be good if you're religious. Now there's a whole debate over this, and we're not going to go into it tonight. But what I want to discuss is what the Imam said over here. The Imam gave us three categories of people. The first one was the highest one, which is if you have belief in God, then this is something that you would never commit. You would never kill an innocent individual, first of all. Secondly, he's the grandson of your own prophet. Thirdly, you're killing his family members as well. You kill children, you kill a baby infant, you cut the water off of them. This is all something that a religious person would never do. The Imam and the believers have the highest moral standards. We read today in the daytime during the battle when the horse of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was with the Imam and they went down to drink water from the river, the Imam refused to drink water until his horse drank water before him, even though the Imam was dying of thirst. And he needed the water to continue fighting. Who would think during such a difficult time, such a harsh moment, a moment where life and death is on the line and you're being attacked by the enemies, and you have the moment and the calmness to think about having your horse drink water before you. Do you think this is something that would cross our minds when we're in that situation? In the smallest problems, we forget those who are around us, our closest friends and family members. We think about ourselves and wanting to save ourselves. But a person who has reached such a high spiritual level, such as the Imam, even in such a moment, he's able to stop himself from drinking and offer water to a horse. Others would say, well, it's just an animal. Why should I offer water to it? You know, this is a battle. I'm fighting. The horse can go drink water later. I'm the Imam. I'm the human being. I need to drink the water. But the Imam doesn't think that way. The Imam has mercy over all the creatures of God. So such a person would take such a decision. It's not just because he's an Imam, but the Imam had trained himself to be like this. Throughout his prayers, throughout his actions in his life, throughout the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, the Prophet sallallahu Muhammad wa Muhammad. The Prophet used to order the companions to put water outside for the animals, especially when it's very hot, to think about them. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, for example, says that a cat, for example, and this is for the cat lovers, you can use this if you want to get a cat to your house. The Imam says that the cat is part of the family, part of the household of an individual, because they're always around the house and they hang around the house. So you treat it as a family member. In another hadith, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that I am embarrassed before God if if a cat eats from the plate of my food and I throw that food away. I wouldn't throw it away. This connection is bond with animals. Of course, not every animal that eats from your food you have to eat after it. But the point is that you shouldn't feel a disconnect. You can move the part that the animal ate from and continue eating. The point is that the cat, in the words of the Imam, is a very close being to us. You can take care of it. You feed them if they're stray. You put water for them. And the Imams were constantly thinking about those that are surrounding them. You think that this is just a Western value, right? You come to the US or you're born here and you see that there's so much care for animals. And you think, why do they care so much for animals? Well, this is an Islamic concept as well. The Prophet always ordered for people to take care of their animals. Planting trees, the Prophet always recommended planting trees. So these are things that we have to involve in our lives. If we want to develop as individuals, if we want to become better persons. People praise the West for having so high values like this. Well, these are values that we have to have as individuals as well, so that we become the examples that the Prophet and the Imams wanted us to be. So the Imam here gives three categories. To go back to this saying that the Imam said. If you believe in religion, you believe in God, you would never do this. But obviously you don't. Why? Because you're attacking, you're doing it. So we put that on the side. We don't expect you to have that high moral standard because you're here fighting us. The second option is that if you don't fear the day of judgment, sometimes I'm not doing religion or I'm not following religion based on love. The highest level of faith is when we follow God based on love. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that the worshippers of God are of three types. Those who worship God like having a business deal with Him, like a trader. And these people are greedy, these people want heaven. That's why they worship God. They worship Him in order to earn heaven. The other category, worship God based on fear. These guys are scared. They don't want to go to hell. And the third category, worship God because of love. And this is the highest level of worshiping. The Imam says that we have to develop ourselves to reach that point of worshiping God based on love. The Imam ﷺ says, "O Allah," in one of his sayings, "I never worshiped you in greed of heaven. I never worshiped you wanting to get heaven. Nor did I worship you because I feared hell. But I found you worthy of worshiping, and this is why I worshipped you." This is Imam Ali ﷺ. He finds his level of consciousness and level of awareness of God, understands that this great being that created us is worthy of worshiping. This is the elevation that we have to have as believers. Now, it's not wrong to worship Him to go to heaven or out of fear of hell, but that's just a lower level of worship. So here when the Imam says, if you don't have belief in God, where you are on that level of just believing God will stop you from doing that thing, and if you don't fear hereafter or hellfire, because some people, again, that second category where you don't worship God because you love Him or you want heaven, but because you're scared of hellfire, that should have stopped you. Hellfire you should know that what you're doing is going to put you in hell, because you're killing this innocent individual you're the grandson of Rasulullah. But even if you don't have that, because obviously you don't, because it's not stopping you. All of you people came here to fight me. If you don't have these two things, then at least be free in your world. Be a free individual. The basic thing as human beings that we have to have, that God has given us, is our freedom. Maybe you don't believe in God. Maybe you don't have faith in religion. But as a human being, you can still be noble to a certain degree. You can still have some morals. You can still have some ethics. Don't let someone else govern you and control you. Don't let money control you. This is the basic level that you should be as a human being. Anything below that, then it's not even worth living in this world. So the Imam is saying that this freedom as human beings, even if you don't believe in God, you should at least have that to stop you from doing this thing. So in one sense, the Imam is saying that there are people who can be decent even if they're not religious. We look around us, we shouldn't discredit people if they don't follow our religion and our faith. We shouldn't discredit them completely and attack them if they don't fully believe in God. Because there is some basic level of humanity and morality that human beings can follow. Now, it doesn't take religion to tell you that lying is bad. It doesn't take religion to tell you that stealing is bad. These are basic morals that human beings can understand on their own. And in Islam, they call this the fitrah. This is the human nature that God has put in us. When we are born, we know these things. Nobody would tell you that stealing is a good thing. Killing innocent people, another basic human universal value. So humans can be decent to a certain degree. So the question we come to ask ourselves is, okay, if we can be decent as human beings, we can be good, and we can have morals, then why religion? Why should we follow a God? Isn't it enough for us to be able to be moral individuals? I won't steal, I won't lie, I won't hurt anybody, I won't kill anyone, and I'll be nice to everyone. Isn't that enough for me? Well, that would earn you the basic level of human decency. But what religion tries to do is, doesn't try to keep you at that basic level. In Islam, or in religion in general, in Christianity and Judaism, these are all religions from God, the belief is that He can elevate you to a higher spiritual status. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about Adam, He talks about him as a caliph, as someone He chose to rule the earth because of his spiritual status. So religion tries to elevate you. Morality can keep you at a basic level of good human decency, and this is a wonderful thing. And we respect everybody who's a decent human being. And we give them respect, and we don't attack them, and we don't put them down. This is a very good thing. But at the same time, we shouldn't allow ourselves to say that this is enough for us. We should always try to move beyond it, move above it, expand our souls, reach higher levels, of purity and levels of consciousness. That's why you can find someone who's a very good friend of yours, who's very decent, doesn't lie, doesn't steal, doesn't cheat, and so on and so forth, but you find them kind of empty inside. Whereas you can sit with someone who's very decent and religious, and you feel like there's some very positive energy that comes out of them. You feel like they're above in some sort. So religion tries to elevate you above that level of basic decency. It's not just about morality, but it's about that movement towards God, which is the perfection, to perfect yourself from inside. The soul is able to expand and to grow if you feed it and nourish it. Just like the body grows, the soul is able to grow. But in order for the soul to grow, you have to feed it with spirituality. It doesn't just grow by itself. The body is the same thing. If you want to strengthen it, you have to go to the gym and work out. You have to have protein, you have to have a specific diet if you want your body to grow. Now you can stay with a very good body without having muscles or without being very fit. That's also possible. You're not a bad person for doing that. But if you have the objective of growing and becoming someone who's physically fit, then you have to endure those troubles. And that's what religion does. It says that it's not enough to be a human at a decent level. You can be that if you want. But I want to come and take you to make you fit spiritually. So this is one of the roles that religion plays in our lives. And I don't want to go into too much detail about that tonight. I just wanted to throw it out there so that we think about it, because some people are confused when it comes to why is religion here and why do we need it in our lives? Why can't I just be a good person and not follow religion? Well, this is one of the reasons. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. After the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Umar ibn Sa'd from the enemies, yelled out two things. The first thing he said was, burn the tents of the oppressors, referring to Imam Hussein alayhi salam's family. He's calling them oppressors. This is the darkness that you can reach as an individual when you see the wrong good and the good wrong. You reach a point of blindness that you see the bad thing is a good thing and the good thing is a bad thing. This is a point that we don't want to reach in our lives. But this is an individual who had become so low that he started calling the tent of the purest individuals oppressors. So he ordered his men to come and burn the tents down of the ladies of Rasulullah. The daughters of the Prophet began running around, and they had no men to protect them anymore. It was the ladies running. Some had children and some were alone. Imagine standing on the battlefield in your tents. All the men have been killed and only you women have been remaining there. Thousands of soldiers in front of you who don't care about you. What kind of fear do you have? All your protectors are on the ground killed. And then they come running towards you, holding fire and coming to burn your tents. The women began running and fleeing around. And they started yelling out, Wa Muhammadah, Wa Aliyah, calling out to Rasulullah and calling out to Imam Ali alayhi salam. One of the individuals who witnessed the battle was named Hamid bin Muslim. He was there and he was writing down what was occurring in the battle. There were individuals who stood on the side and observed what happened and wrote it down. Hamid bin Muslim was one of them. He said that when they burned the tents over the daughters of Rasulullah, the woman fled and ran to the desert. And when I was looking at the tents as they were burning, I saw a very noble woman standing at the door of one of the tents. Sometimes she would go into the tent and sometimes she would come out. So I ran to her. I wanted to know who she is. And I told her, what are you doing here standing next to this fire when it's all surrounding you? You're gonna get burned. All the other women have left and ran away. What keeps you over here? The lady, he said, cried. And she told him, he was an old man, she told him, oh old man, we have a sick person in the tent. He cannot sit down, he cannot get up. How can I leave him when the fire has surrounded him? This was Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, the son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who was sick during the battle. He couldn't move. Sayyidah Zainab didn't want to leave him alone with the fire burning the tents. And Hazan Hamid bin Muslim says another thing. He said, I saw a child from the children of Hussein ran to the desert, and the fire was burning behind her. She was scared, and she went close, so he went close to the child. And I told the child, little child, the fire is going to burn you. And then she looked at me, and she thought that I was from the soldiers of the enemy. And she told me, she asked me a question. She told me, old man, are you with us or are you against us? So I told her, I'm not with you or against you. So she tells him, oh old man, did you read the Quran? He said, yes, I have read the Quran. He said, well, did you read this verse from the Quran? فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. And the orphan, do not harm the orphan. He said, yes, I've read that verse. He said, oh old man, I am the orphan of Hussein. So I told her, well, where are you going? She said that my Aunt Zainab told me that there's a grave in Najaf, and it's the grave of Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali alayhi salam. I want to go there to be protected. Imam Ali was her grandfather. So I told her, little girl, Najaf is very far from here, you can't make it over there. So she told him, then show me where the body of my father Hussein is. He said, I took her to the body of her father. And when she saw that he had a body without a head, she threw herself on him. And she hugged him. And she told him, oh Father Hussein, who is he that cut your head? Who is he that made you bleed like this? Who is the one that made me an orphan at such a young age? The second thing that Umar ibn Sa'ad said on that night, or on that day, he ordered the horses to go over the body of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The woman had to witness all of this. Zainab had to see all of this. They were running from one side to the other, and all the bodies were on the land of Karbala, bodies without heads, bodies without arms, and a little child being killed. They had to witness all of this, and the fire was burning behind them. Zainab alayhi salam was taking care of the family at that time. She was so heartbroken, but she was the one that was responsible for the family. They say that she ran out and she was looking for little children. They say that she found 2 children lying down on the floor, and she moved them and they wouldn't move. She tried to wake them up and they wouldn't wake up because they died from thirst. The army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, some of the soldiers, got very angry that these children are dying of thirst. So Umar ibn Sa'ad ordered that they get water for the children. They brought water to them, but the children refused to drink. They said, how can we drink when Al-Hussein, our master, had died thirsty? The last thing is that Rabab, the mother of Abdullah, when she got to drink some water, milk started being produced in her body. She's living in shock. She can't believe that she lost her child. They say that she ran to the grave of her child and started speaking to him, Abdullah, come and drink from my milk. It's time for you to drink, my son. This is the state that the women were in. And then they were taken as captives, and they were taken from land to land. Inshallah, tomorrow we can talk about that and continue discussing the story that happened. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب سينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Ya Allah, we ask you, Ya Allah, by the rights of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi and his family, that you forgive all our sins, Ya Allah. We ask you to improve our lives, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, there's a lot of people here, and those who are lovers of Ahlul Bayt who have needs and requests. A lot of them have asked me for dua. Ya Allah, whoever has a need, whoever is separated from their family, whoever has an ill individual in their family, whoever is suffering from pain and sadness and depression, Ya Allah, we ask you to grant them their requests, to bring the families back together, and to remove our sorrow and pain from our hearts. Ya Allah, we ask you to increase our love for you and to improve our lives. بحق محمد وآل محمد. Please recite Al-Fatiha with salawat.